The next lesson we're going to talk about here is number 30, right? It's a very common request. Clients like to have some sort of rich text editor for input, right? So they can do things with bold and underlined and, different font sizes at the very least, sometimes colors. But you know what? There are a number of free, or some of them are cheap, unless, it's usually the ones with even more advanced features you have to pay a little bit to use, right? But there are a number of choices out there that all work with our ASP.NET MVC applications, right? Just to mention a few that are very popular, you can easily find lots of information on out there, TinyMCE and so on and so forth. So feel free to Google each of them, play around with what features they have, and decide which one you want to use, right? But I'm just going to do a quick demo with this particular one here. Summernote, it's pretty much open source. Read their lessons just to make sure, okay, because it might have changed since I last checked, but I'm pretty sure it's good to go. It's nice for inputting, maintaining. We're going to use it for comments. Maybe the user wants to be able to write some comments about patients, right? And that we won't have that on the index because that's something that maybe would be more confidential, so that only a supervisory position or an admin position be able to read the comments. But we want to have that there for the patients, right? So feel free to have a look. This is their website. Look at the team. Go ahead. Right. Yeah, here's the team, the people that developed it and support this. So feel free to support them. I encourage you to do so. But in the meantime, we're just going to get an example in place. So I've got my copy-paste file. Let me grab it. So by all means, read through the documentation. You can actually download and install. They have the compiled version of the source code that you can just grab and put into your application. Just for a quicker demo, I'm going to use a CDN, right, to actually get all the code and get it in place. So we're going to have to do a bit of work, though, right? One of the issues is we need to get the style sheet in place. It's easy. We're already set up. Let me go back to Visual Studio for a second here. We're already set up inside of our layout page. Right down, we have this render section for our script section. So anytime we want to add some extra script on a page, all we have to do is provide it in a section called scripts, and it gets added here. Notice required is false. Well, we want to do the same type of thing up in the header section, right? For some CSS, because up here is where we get all of our CSS for Bootstrap, our site CSS, and so on. Okay, so we're going to want to add a render section up here as well. Now, what name we give it is up to us, right? I'm just going to put it here. Okay, I could call it whatever I want. I could call it CSS or whatever. I'm just going to call it head, because to me it makes sense. It goes in the head section, right? Required is false. So anytime I want to add some CSS that I'm supplying, I can just put it in a section called head, and then it will be included in my layout in this spot, right? Okay, I could call it style sheets or anything, but I'm just going to stick with head. All right. Now, that's good. That's all the only change I have to make to my layout. But what I do need to do here then is I need to add this new property to my actual model, right? So let's come into our models. We'll come to our patient. And I'm just going to add a nullable string. I'm going to call it comments. These are the comments we might want to add about a patient, right? So yes, I'm going right back, changing the actual model itself. So where I put it is kind of immaterial here. I'm going to maybe throw it here just for the fun of it. Okay, the nullable string, comments, data type, multi-line text. Might as well have it set up for that at the very least, right? Okay, now, I don't want to re-scaffold all the work we've done on all of our views. So I just have to simply add a little bit of HTML to both the create and edit views, okay, adding a text area input, right? So let me just come to each of those. So let me come down now to views. And for patient, I'm going to need the create and the edit. Okay. Actually, I'm done with the patient class, so I can close that up. All right, so where am I going to put it here? Well, for now, I'm just going to put it right at the bottom, okay? We have a separate row here where we put our submit button. I'm going to put it in its own row in between, right? Oh, grabbed the wrong code here. Oh. Sorry. Yeah, I grabbed the wrong code. There. So it is just a form group for comments. Okay, I'm just putting in its own row. So it's going to take the whole width here. I'm giving it the whole column MD12, right? So just a nice big area there. I'll put the same thing on the create right above our submit button. Okay, so that should work in both of those. All right, so now we're ready to input it. Okay, but in both of these views, we have to add the functionality to tie, right? So our text area is actually going to become, okay, by implementing the code from our Summernote, it's going to become our rich text input, okay? So down here where we add our different sections, first I'm going to add my section head, right? And this link is right from the documentation on their website, okay? So I'm just going to use a CDN, okay, to get for supporting Bootstrap 5, the latest version here, 0.9 of Summernote, and there we go, right? Now I also need to have some corresponding JavaScript as well, okay? So I need to get the link for the actual JavaScript from the CDN. So I'm going to put that maybe right here. So we can get that just like we load our own refresh DLL and so on and so forth, okay? And then I need a separate little script to actually then make the relation between my text area named comments and Summernote itself, right? So the order I put it really doesn't matter. I'm going to throw it right here. Oh, I grabbed the wrong one again. Sorry. Copy. Paste. Okay. There. Okay. So basically document ready here. I have my comments. I just Summernote. Now I'm giving it a height of 100. If I wanted to give it more height, I could give it more height, or we can let the user deal with it however, right? Now, before we can actually test this though, we added a new property to our model. What do we have to do? Well, we have to think about, for one thing, do we have to make any changes to our DB context? Not really, but we actually do need a new migration, right? And besides the migration issue, what about if we want to edit this? Well, there's some changes we have to make in the post for both create and edit. So let's come to our controller, come down to the patient controller. You're going to go Control MO, shrink everything down. So here is the post for create, right? Remember what's going on here is we do a bind, right, of all the properties coming from the view that we're going to bind to. Well, we actually have to add comments in there, right? So I could throw it pretty much anywhere. Maybe I'll put it right here. Add comments. So that gets bound as well. If it doesn't get bound to the patient that we're building, then it won't get saved, right? Okay. That's the only change we really have to do there, though. So coming down to the post for edit, well, of course, it's slightly different because we're doing a try-update model, right? But with the try-update model, then, we just have to add new lambda for comments. I thought I copied, but I didn't. Okay. So again, when we try to update our patient, we have to make sure that we're updating the comments as well. All right. Now, where do we want to see the comments? Well, you know, it'd be nice to show them on the details page, but our details page is our parent-child, our master detail page with the appointment history. So you know what, for now, I'm just going to throw a description with pair on the delete view. So let's come back down to the views. I could put it anywhere here. Maybe I'll put it right at the bottom, okay? After all the others, I'll just throw it in there, okay? Using the same arrangement just for comments, okay? Now, notice one thing here. When we're going to show the comments, it's raw HTML. That's what gets stored, right, from our rich text editor. So we have to make sure it's displayed as HTML raw, right? Otherwise it won't appear properly. Okay, so that's good except for the whole issue of, okay, let me just save everything here. I can close it all up as well. The issue of migrations, right? So I could be a good boy and actually come in and make a new migration. That's probably what I should do. But I wanted to share this with you. I said we would talk more about this later on in the course, and we haven't actually done it very often. If I come down here to program.cs, right at the bottom, okay, now because I've made a change to the overall model, I have to make sure that I drop and recreate the database for one thing. So I'll set that to true. We're going to seed new data and everything anyway. Use migrations, okay? Remember how this works? If we set this to false, it uses a different command. Instead of applying migrations, it uses the .ensureCreated command. We have talked about it before, but it's worth reminding ourselves what that does, right? So let's come up here to our data, our initializer, okay? In our prepare the database section here, if we say no to use migrations or false, okay, it applies ensure created, right? So what ensure created does is it actually takes, it's like generating a migration. It takes the current status of your model and all the refinements in the Fluent API from our DB context and basically writes a migration, applies it, but it doesn't save it anywhere, right? So, you know, if there's anything messed up in my migrations, okay, then this was guaranteed to work as long as I've deleted the database, right? Because the gotcha on this is that if the database is there, it says, oh, well, my job is done, okay? And it won't look for any changes, right? So this only works in harmony with actually deleting the database. But I can actually give it a try now, and we should see if it actually works. Hopefully it will. I know we're almost out of time, actually going a little bit over here, but bear with me, we're almost finished. Okay, took a moment because of course we had to, yeah, supervisor's good enough. I can log in there. If we come to patients, if I come down to create or edit, okay, maybe I'll just use edit. Here we see our comments down below. Oh, it didn't work. Oh, fiddle faddle. Okay, I messed up something somewhere along the line. Okay, hang on a second. I'll figure out what that is. I figured it out. See, I did it on the create page. We have our rich text input here, but I forgot to do the same thing on the actual edit page. So let me just fix that. It'll only take a moment, and then we'll be able to see it fully functional. Okay, sorry, I wasn't recording there. So on the edit, I've just added the same head section, the same CDN reference. Let me just minimize this for a second, and the same script to actually get it working on our comments text area. Okay, so it should be working now. I'll log in as super once more, come in and edit a patient. And yes, so we do actually have a text area here. So I can type comments in here. Of course, helps if I type things properly. And, you know, I can do all kinds of things. I can make that bold. I can make this underlined. I can make this, give it a color. And there's all kinds of stuff that we can do. I'll click Save. Now, I don't see that here. I didn't take time to add it to the details. I could have. It only would have taken a minute or two. But if I come to the, I can't see the delete page. Best laid mice have plans and men. Sorry about that. This is definitely taking longer than I planned. Okay. There. We see our nicely fully stylized HTML here. I could put it on the details page as well, I suppose, as that wouldn't take too long. But if I'm going to take a bit more time, I want to address the issue. I don't really like this arrangement. It was quick and easy to throw it here. But really, I would probably want to rearrange this into maybe a 3-column layout and just, kind of improve things a little bit. So I might just take a moment and do that. Okay, I'll pause the recording while I do those changes. Okay, so I just modified the layout a little bit, and we'll just see the effect here. You know what? Why don't I also get it on the details view? So to display the information on the details view, let me just I'll do something similar to what I was throwing on the actual delete view. But of course, the details view isn't actually this one, right? I could delete that actually. But let's come down, patient appointment index. This is what is functioning as our patient details, right? So, oh, it's actually, remember we use our partial view. It's the underscore patient detail partial view. That's where we show the actual patient details. So maybe I'll make a little bit more room. I might move the email and the phone number out of the second column. Put them in the first column, and then that will make room for my comments. I'll maybe put it at the bottom of the second column here, right? Now these are all set up with 4 and 8, so I guess I'll make this 4 and 8 as well. So always add up to 10. Okay, all right, there. We'll give this one more try. I'm logging in as admin. That's fine. I go into edit. But you know, I can have lots and lots of text and so on, right? I can, as I said, do all kinds of fancy stuff if I want to, bold and underline and things like that. You know what? That's not very helpful, but I just want to point out there's other things. I can insert tables, okay? I can do links. Oh, look at that picture. I can actually go in, find a file, okay? Throw a picture in here. Look at that, right? Click save. And there it is, right in the, that picture wasn't maybe the best idea, but not for my layout. But anyway, you see, now you can disable that something. Read the documentation for Summernote, and you can go in and you can disable certain things. Let me see, can I just delete that? There we go. Yeah, so that's a little bit better. But, you know, as I said, it's also available on the delete view. Okay, here's my rich text with all the formatting and everything else. Very good. And, you know, I think that arrangement is better, right? Having the 3 columns, having the comments down over here, I think that's a better arrangement. So I'll leave it that way when I post this solution. And away we go. All right, so that finishes our demo of using a rich text input. Okay, and you can play around. As I said, you can disable certain things if you want. It's all available in the documentation for the actual tool that we're using. Anyway, that finishes this one. I hope you had fun.